Hello, and welcome to another episode of the Hollywood Experience. This week we have a special guest, Ethan Detmeyer. Okay, I know we've had him before, but you know he's really kind of like he just stuck to the wall. So you know I just had to let him back in.
Yes, thank you for that. I'm not sure how special I am, but I'm happy to be
You're
here.
very special. You're very special. Don't
Well,
you feel
thank
special
you.
now?
I do feel special now, and I actually feel even more special because I'm excited to be a part of the Hollywood Experience for as long as they let me in.
Let me in through the doors. So, how's your week been? How have you been to any? Have you seen any new films this week? Have you seen anything fun? I mean, I keep watching Ted Lasso on it on Apple TV, and I kind of love that. It's kind of like a fun. People are like, yeah, it's my culture as well, just the way it is, and the American Fish Out of Water in the English Society soccer campaign and the way that they do it is it's very funny.
Yeah, I know you're a big advocate of Ted Lasso, and I support that as well. I haven't seen too much movie-wise this week, actually. I've been out of the loop, but I will be on a battleship tomorrow for a broadcast, the Battleship Iowa. So I'll try to get you.
What are you doing on the What are you doing on the battleship?
Well, it was a battleship that actually moved President Roosevelt during World War II. We're doing a big media piece from it. We're going to climb the turrets, get into the guns. You know, there was also a horrific accident on board, as you may know, where there was a turret explosion back in the 80s when the battleship was about to be retired that killed 47 sailors.
Wow.
So I'm in San Pedro for a show from the USS Iowa.
And what network? What are you doing? Is this for combat radio or is this for?
Yeah, it's a combat radio piece for a television affiliate. So it could be interesting. I was actually going to invite you, but I know you're off to some misadventure tomorrow.
Of course, yes. I'm traveling halfway across the country, Green Bay, Bowling Green. So I got a green in it, you know.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm off there. Those of you that you'll probably be able to see the YouTube videos by the time this show is released. But you know, that's okay. That's
Speaking of Bowling Green, Kentucky, you know that's where director John Carpenter is from.
Oh, is it? Is it? How do you know that? See, you've got some really interesting, useless information, don't you? I know you've stored it over the years of working over at Warner Brothers. I'm going to drag it out of you on this show.
I was waiting for the moment when somebody mentions John Carpenter or Bowling Green, and I can put the two together.
He actually does a lot of music. I don't think many people do. I think they put Bowling Green and John Carpenter together, do they? I mean, not necessarily.
Well, he does a lot of music under the name the Bowling Green Symphony Orchestra, which is like a pseudonym for his band. But yeah, so there, you know, some interesting things and people have come out of Bowling Green. I've never been to Kentucky. You have, I'm guessing. So
yeah, I have actually. I've been there. I've been through Kentucky a couple of times, doing sword experiences, and it's interesting because they're much, you know, they're not as how can I put it? It's not as busy there as it is. Yeah. I mean, when you come out of Nashville, of course, Nashville is a busy town and helping, but further out in Kentucky, there's less population, you know, so it's a different mindset. I think slower in some respects, but that's good. I think it's a good thing.
Well, while you're in Bowling Green, I'll look up Ted Lasso. How's that?
Yeah, you should definitely do that because it's very. I've actually put a couple of people onto him, and I was talking to. I was at my son's soccer the other day, and I was talking to another English dad. He's a dad. He's well, I call him English. He's lived in Australia for most of his years, and he has an Australian accent. I'm sorry for him, but anyway, you know, and he said, and then the coach came over, and he was English, and then it became this banter between my calling Tottenham Hotspur, you know, this type of team and that type of team, and you know, obviously it becomes the English type of banter backwards and forwards. And after he left, the dad said to me, he says, "Yes, that's what I miss in America. There's a different way that English people talk to each other, and it's true." But Steve Cardenas, and I guess you could see behind me that you know, he was a Power Ranger. He was the Blue Ranger, to be totally precise, which is why I have a Blue Ranger image behind me. And so Steve actually, the interesting thing is Steve's really done the Power Ranger, and that's really his claim to fame. It's one. I mean, he's done other things as well, but really the Power Rangers. He's done he's played Rocky DeSantos many times in Power Rangers Turbo, in Mighty Morphin Power Rangers, the 1995 version, 1994, 96. He's done all of those Ranger shows, and so obviously he comes from a martial art background, and that was all really what the background of a Ranger was, a martial artist, pretty much. So I was actually curious to see what his take on doing, the Power Rangers was, because obviously he had a lot of action. And did he do his own action? Well, this interview will reveal all. But I'm not going to get to it yet because I want to hold you in suspenders. Boom, bing. Did you watch the Power Rangers?
No,
did you watch the Power Rangers?
That was after my time.
Was it after your time?
Yeah, no, that was that came up in the 90s, right?
Yes, right. So you were saying you were out of your teenage years at that point, were you?
But I'll tell you, anyone pretty much under the age of 15 lived and died with the Power Rangers. I remember it being sort of, phenomenal.
Oh yes, yeah. But there've been over like 100 Rangers now. I mean, they've swapped people out from one to the next one. And he talks about, how a bunch of them was like, no, we want to get paid more. They went, oh, really? Bye-bye.
Right.
They just went, now we get some more. Yeah, so well, you'll hear that in the interview in a moment, but I'm still keeping you in your suspenders because I don't want to let you go. I just want to make you suffer. Let me think about it. Okay. All right. We'll go to this interview and then we'll be right back. Okay. We got another transatlantic one this morning. This is jumping from everywhere this week. Steve Cardenas, how are you, brother? You're over in England right now.
Oh man, it's great. Yeah. I mean, I love being abroad. It's every time I go back and visit or whatever, and I'm like, oh, I live in London. They're like, oh, you live in London? Wow, that's so cool. So the novelty of that has definitely not worn off in that sense. Plus, I just I love the UK. I mean, I know you grew up here, so you know how it is. And I love the people here, and I love the old architecture and stuff. I mean, like nothing in America is more than 200 years old at the most. And, here you've got buildings that were built 700 years ago and stuff, so to see that mixture of like old architecture with new stuff, I don't know. I mean, it's just fascinating to me, just see so much history,
How long have you been there now?
So I've been here since September of last year.
So it definitely kind of worn off yet.
For that, yeah.
It kind of worn off yet.
No, not at all, man. I love it. Although it sucks because moving here during the time when everything was locked down, it's kind of tough. It was kind of tough to go out. There was nothing open and things like that. So I haven't been able to fully until now. The lockdowns have been lifted and I've been starting to go out a bit and stuff, but I haven't been able to fully enjoy living here in England, because I've been kind of stuck inside a bunch for most of the time. But you just came back from the States, though, right? We both saw each other in Connecticut at the Mohegan Sun at the Terrificon event, which was fun. Do you like doing those events? Yeah, I do them all the time, to be honest. Before COVID hit, I was doing probably 35 to 40 conventions a year. I was literally traveling on the road.
Wow.
Almost every weekend, popping from, con to con to con to con to con, all over the country, all over the world. And so, yeah, I've become very traveled as a result of that. And it's been really good. It's been a good experience. I've been all over South America and all over Europe and, even like Tokyo and places. So it's been great. Yeah. I love it. I think
it gives you,
when you're single, you don't have, kids are all grown up, and all that stuff like that. You don't have those responsibilities that a lot of other people have. You just have the freedom to travel and stuff. So it's been good.
Now, this is obviously, it's not the only thing you've done, but Power Rangers is such a huge, it's such a huge, iconic thing that, I'm guessing this is where a lot of the fans come from that you meet at these cons.
Right. Correct. Yeah. I mean, Power Rangers is now forever, just like Highlander is and all that, is forever part of pop culture now. You know what I mean? So there's always going to be that base, you know, that will come out and see you at these events and things like that. So yeah, I'm grateful for that. And it's interesting to me and humbling in a sense, you know, that after all these years, people that love something as a kid still love it now and still like to watch the old episodes and everything like that. So in some small way, I'm still kind of relevant in their life a little bit, which is very cool, you know.
So tell me, how did you start in you started as a martial artist, really, before as an actor? I mean,
yeah.
you started, you know, back in, we've done 28 years, I think, something like this. You were like 12 when you first started.
Yeah.
How did you get
Thanks
get into? Yeah, I know everybody does that with me. I'm like, oh shoot, no, don't say that.
Yeah.
Yeah. So how did you get into the martial arts, and what drew you to doing Taekwondo, which is and obviously then did Brazilian jiu-jitsu, if I could say it.
Yeah. Right. Yeah, absolutely. So so how I got into martial arts was, you know, I was a young kid. As I was a young kid, I used to get bullied by this group of kids, you know, and it was pretty relentless, you know. I was this kid who, you know, when I was 10, 11 years old, was very socially awkward, and I was trying to make friends, but I was kind of always going about it the wrong way. And I just sort of ended up annoying these group of people who, you know, and, you know, at that age, kids are bullies anyway, you know what I mean? Kids are mean as they are. And, you know, these guys were particularly mean. So I used to get beat up all the time. And then back in like 1984, the movie The Karate Kid came out. And I saw this movie, The Karate Kid, and I saw what this kid was going through. And I'm like, that's me. You know what I mean? Like, this is the kind of thing that I was going through. And I was like, man, I just wish I could learn karate so I could kick these guys' asses, you know? And I just had this dream in my mind that I would, like, you know, beat these guys up for picking on me every day. And anyway, my mom couldn't afford it. I lived with my mom at the time back then. And then when I was 12, I moved to go live with my father, who was in another state. So this was in Texas. And so by this point, I'm obsessed with martial arts and martial arts movies and stuff, and wishing I could learn. And I'm, you know, in the backyard practicing my own thing, you know, my own moves, not knowing what I'm doing or anything like that. And I wanted to learn so bad. And there was a martial arts studio right down the street from my house. And I used to peer in the window all the time and watch these kids working out, and just dreaming that I could learn, you know, the arts and stuff. And of course, my dad couldn't afford it. You know, my parents couldn't afford to get me enrolled. So so one day I'm laying in bed one day, and I'm just like, I know what to do. And so I went to the karate school, and I spoke to the instructor that was there. And I was 12 years old at the time. And I just said to him, I said, you know, I really want to learn martial arts, but I just don't have the money to pay for it. Would you in any way be willing to, like, let me sweep the floors here and clean the windows and, you know, clean the bathrooms and stuff, and clean up after everybody in exchange for lessons? Would you be willing to do that? And you know, I was a good student, you know, I was a straight A's and maybe a couple of B's student. And so he said, how are your grades in school? I said, they're perfect, they're good. And then he goes, okay, then I'll give you a chance. And I thought for sure he was going to say no to that idea. Like, what did he need somebody to clean the school for? He probably had 100 students that could do it, you know? And I asked him later about that. And he said, do you know how many people have come to me with that same proposition that you did? And I said, I don't have any idea. He said 100. And he goes, do you know how many I let in? I said, how many? He goes, all of them. Because I was always willing to give everybody a chance, but nobody ever stuck. So I was like one of the only ones that ever stuck, you know, doing that. And, you know, I put all my effort into it. You know, I'd come after school, and I would clean the school up, and then I would do my classes, you know, and I would stay there all day. And, you know, after a while, you know, I found had a natural ability, you know. I think maybe it must have been all that practicing out in the backyard that I was doing, you know, but something connected for me with martial arts, and I really took to it. And before I knew it, I was doing forms competitions, and I used to do these competitive tournaments where we would compete in these katas and things like that, to win trophies and stuff. And I was winning them all the time. And right around that same time, I was also got involved in gymnastics as well. And I was a gymnast. So I was doing both. And then I started incorporating the two together. And so it really it really started helping me take off in that world, in the forms competition world and stuff. So became part of our competition team for our studio, and we'd go around to tournaments to compete and stuff. And that was a lot of fun. So I don't know. I mean, it was just something that sort of naturally happened for me. And martial arts was literally, bro, it was literally my obsession. I mean, I was there day in, day out, every day. And not only was I learning, but all of a sudden, after a few months I was there, I was teaching little kids classes. I was already to the point where I was able to be teaching some classes and stuff. So not only was I there working out and doing my own thing, but I was also now helping with the teaching of the classes. And then as the years went by, I was learning everything. So then I started learning all the inner office stuff, and I started learning when people come in and go, yeah, can I speak to one of your instructors about taking some classes? I'd go, well, what are you looking for? Are you looking to lose weight, or are you looking to get in shape, or, what's are you learning to learn self-defense? I said, well, look, I'll tell you what, we've got tons of different programs here. Why don't you come into the office? I'll sit down with you and I'll show you everything that we got. You know what I mean? So I was like a little salesman too. You know what I mean?
So you got your salesman pitch out there. Did you?
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, everything. So, then that, by the time I was in high school, I was, running the whole entire academy. I was, making the night deposits. I was signing the contracts. I was maintaining, the studio. I was teaching the classes. I was doing everything, So It was more like an apprenticeship for me. And I had this goal and this dream in mind that I was going to become a martial arts instructor, and I was going to open up my own studio and all this stuff. And so I was well on my way to doing that. And then I was, one day hanging out with some friends of mine after work, and this commercial came on the radio. And this is back in 1994. The Power Rangers had already come out in 93. So the show had been on for a little while, and I was teaching all these kids classes. So everybody's talking about Power Rangers and whatnot. And so this commercial comes on and says, hey, we're looking for new Power Rangers. If you know how to do martial arts or gymnastics, then you should come down to the local TV station and try out. And I was felt like it was being directed direct at me, So I just said, hey, I know how to do martial arts and gymnastics. I think I'll go down and I'll try out for this thing. So I went to what they call a cattle call, you know what I mean? And obviously what those are, it's just a open audition where anyone and everyone is welcome. They were not looking for Hollywood people, I think, and when you get into the politics and stuff, there's a reason for that. But they were looking for people that didn't know anything about Hollywood or acting, and they were looking for fresh new faces, right? So I went to this open casting call, and there was probably 5,000 people in the parking lot. And I said, oh God, there's no way I'm not going to make it, but much like the way they do with American Idol, they have 3 little casting directors sitting at a table, and you get 30 seconds to show them what you know how to do. So I just pulled out all the stops and did all the best stuff I knew how to do and mixed it all together into a little kata and stuff. And they were like, okay, great, thank you. And I was like, oh man, that's it.
I find that amazing, actually, from actually coming from and having the gumption at 12 years old to walk into the martial arts studio to actually say to them, listen, I've got this idea. Did you talk to your parents about doing that, or was that something you came up with on your own?
I mean, I had free reign. I had no control. That was one of the reasons kind of that I went to go live with my dad, was because I was so out of control, misbehaved as a kid, getting into trouble all the time because I had no direction of any kind. My mom worked 3 jobs, to support all of my brothers and sisters, because I had a large family. There was 7 of us actually. And, so she worked 3 jobs. She was never around. I ran rampant, did whatever I wanted, got into a lot of trouble. And so that's why I went to go live with my father. And, the idea was that he'd be able to rein me in, but he was working all the time too. And I just did whatever the hell I wanted. So, if it wasn't for having this idea and being so driven to learn the martial arts, you know, I probably would have just become this really bad kid that got into a lot of trouble and had no direction, you know. But I don't know where it came from, Adrian. I honestly don't. It just hit me one night that it's like, you know, at that age, I didn't talk to anybody about it. I didn't ask anybody because I didn't want anybody to tell me no, you know. So I just went and I asked, and I don't know where that came from, to be honest, you know. But I'm really happy that it did, because it was something that changed my life forever. Because after that, you know, like, you know, even though my grades and stuff were good in school, you know, I finally had some place that I felt like I was part of, you know what I mean, that I felt like I belonged to.